In a recent news report, web browsers Chrome, Firefox, and Safari are sending users' browsing history and personal identifying information to external servers in a worrisome trend. These three were ranked in the lowest privacy category the study conducted. Chances are that you're using one of these browsers when you surf the internet. I know I am. Imagine someone you don't know seeing what you search and when on a daily basis, also knowing where you live. Sounds creepy, right? This is why using Virtual Shield VPN is the recommended choice to help reduce any type of privacy risk from prying eyes. Here, let me show you how easy this is to protect yourself. I'm going to go to virtualshield.com or grab the app and download the Virtual Shield free 30-day trial, install it, and click connect. Here's my IP address. Once I'm connected, my IP address is now different than before. See? It's March Madness month, and to celebrate, Virtual Shield is offering a special 30% off all VPN plans, all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, Residential Access, and VIP Performance plans for as low as a cup of coffee. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is all about. You have nothing to lose.
Saved in America is a nonprofit organization of volunteer former law enforcement officers and special operators, Navy SEALs turned licensed insured private investigators. Saved in America at no charge assists parents, law enforcement in locating missing and runaway children. Saved in America also provides assistance to high-risk juvenile shelters to protect children from further exploitation by pimps and predators. And today we have Kirby Horrell, former Navy SEAL and the founder of Saved in America. How are you doing tonight, Kirby?
Mike, fantastic, fantastic. I want to thank you for having me on. I want to thank all your viewers for taking the time to listen to our podcast and learn a little bit more about Saved in America. Saved in America is a dynamite organization. I helped co-found it in 2014 after I retired from SEAL team in the military and after saving thousands of people's lives overseas. I came back home to find out that we have the same heinous crime going on our streets. There was a PhD professor from San Diego University that wrote a white paper that shocked me, and that's kind of how I got involved in Saved in America. We had, a lot of my missions that I had in Africa, were children and adults were, just trafficked all the time, where they were running for their lives most of the time. Monrovia, Liberia was one of those places where they had called us out. It was a NEO where we would go rescue civilians, American civilians, and other nationalities from war-torn countries. And Monrovia was that kind of place. We had a guy that was convicted of murder in Atlanta, Charles Taylor, who had gone to Monrovia and put together a militia army and challenged the government down there. Because it was Monrovia is the city, if a lot of people don't know it, is where President Monroe established all the rubber trees, that industry in Africa. And that's where we and the world gets most of its rubber from. So it was a place ready and rich to be taken over. And Charles Taylor was the one that initiated that. So we kind of flew in there, landed. We evacuated over 3,000 individuals in that particular operation, which probably nobody ever heard about. And, and that's what SEALs do. And then when I come back and got retired, I learned about this kind of trafficking going on inside the United States. And it's a heinous crime that goes after our children. And when you go after our children, you go after the fiber of America. And that is what initiated my desire to get something like this started and to keep it started. We are in a number of cities across the country. San Diego is certainly where we started it. We are in Las Vegas now. We're going to Texas, which is a huge state, Scottsdale, Arizona, Tampa, Florida, and we work on a voluntary basis, as you said. We work directly for the parents. The parents contact us through our website, which is savedinamerica.org. And the parents, we will go interview the parents and find out if the child's just a runaway, if the child was taken unexpectedly, and if the child was kidnapped, then the FBI get involved and we assist as much as we can. But that's our support. We're supporting law enforcement as much as we possibly can, and we're also supporting the city attorneys in gathering information for them so that they can go after these criminals and just complete weirdos of what they're doing to our children and charge them, take them to court, and sue them so that money can be developed to get these children into a program to bring them back to their childhood, which it is tough to do. Once a child has experienced this, it's very tough to get them back to the innocence they had before because their innocence is lost. And
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, I would imagine that's a very difficult process for the the kid to try to, you know, like you said, it's going to be a tough thing for that kid to ever have a normal childhood. And you're talking about the dregs of society, these people that would make money off of exploiting children. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, Kirby, is I know through some of the investigative work we've been doing over the last few years, for example, one of the let's just say an aide of one of the former Secretary of States had got arrested last summer, and he was trying to set up a rendezvous with himself, who was like a 40 or 50-year-old man, and he wanted to set up a sexual rendezvous with a woman that he was talking to on the phone. Said, what do you have for children? And she said, oh, well, I have a 9-year-old. And he's like, oh, that's nice, but do you have anything younger? And then she says, oh, well, my friend here, thank goodness that they were law enforcement. But she says, oh, my friend here has a daughter that's, 3 years old. And he's like, yeah, that's more up my alley. So with that in mind, my question is like, that leads me to believe that there must be some sort of trusted network that these people are dealing in around the country, because, who's going to pick up the phone? I mean, these are scumbags to the utmost degree, but who's going to get on the phone and be like, oh, hey, by the way, can I borrow your kid for a few hours? This guy had to have believed that the person he was talking to was a trusted person. And I'm guessing there must be some sort of network that these people, deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, they're perverts. They're out there. I mean, how many people get caught with all this, with kiddie porn on their phones and everything else? And you're just going, oh my God. I mean, what kind of mind sets that into motion? I can't grab that. And I know millions of Americans can't grab that. And what makes that something that somebody wants to go after? I mean, it's a heinous crime, because when they do that to these young kids, it destroys not only their lives, and that's the point. The child is totally destroyed, but the child's friends are destroyed. The child's parents are destroyed. Every neighborhood that child lives in, where they come from, those people are destroyed because they look at the kids now and they're jaded because this happened to them of no fault of their own. But how do you recover that entire neighborhood from that heinous crime? It's impossible. It's impossible. Look at the numbers that are going. I mean, $150 billion globally on human trafficking. When they did the report over at USD, it was $300,000 a year to the pimps and traffickers for one child. So imagine if they have 5 or 6 kids they're doing this, and how much straight cash they're getting. They pay no taxes on that or anything else, and they can keep the girls and boys as long as they want them. And when they're finished with them, they just put them on a street corner, and then it becomes society's issue of getting these kids back to where they're supposed to be. And we, the taxpayer, are paying this heinous crime, and these guys are laughing all the way to the bank or all the way to their safety deposit box or anything else.
Yeah,
So
it's disgusting.
that is why I got involved and why these laws have to be changed to protect these kids. Now, President Trump has come out. He's put together a human trafficking department, which I think is phenomenal. He's given a lot of people a lot of oversight of things. But you know as well as I know, Mike, in Washington, it takes forever to get anything going, right?
Absolutely.
We've trained people at the DOJ. We've trained people at Homeland Security. We've trained people at the Department of Interior. And the guys there are totally behind it. They are totally for making a dent in this heinous crime. But it still takes time for all this stuff to get going. And some of these kids that we recover, they don't have the time. They don't have the luxury of waiting, right? I mean, one day in their lives is critical to them. You know, and that's what happens, Mike, is the kids will run away, and the first 48 hours, they're vulnerable to these kinds of people, of moving into the trafficking piece of it. And that's why Saved in America, if the parents get a hold of us quickly enough, we are able to reach out to their social networks, you know, Instagram, all those kind of things, and locate them pretty quickly, so that we can recover them before they get moved into these type of things and start being trafficked and start going underground. It makes it so much harder to find them, you know, when we're tracking them from city to city. And that's exactly what the traffickers do. They'll shoot them up with drugs. They'll traffic them from city to city, and the kids don't even know where they're at.
Wow. Now, is the drug thing just so they are more, you know, I guess numb to it? They won't fight, and basically to keep them hooked and keep them coming back for what they want, so they won't run away, etc.
Absolutely. You know, the word I use is pliable. It makes them more pliable to what these crooks want them to do, right? Because the people they get introduced to, they have no idea what they look like because they're all drugged up. They couldn't identify them if they wanted to, right? So that's the reason why and how these predators get away with this stuff. The predators get identified if the kids are semi straight, and the predators come in and, you know, start negotiating things with them or feeding them or doing whatever. But usually they use an intermediary to do that, so they don't have that kind of identification to the guys that are really doing the crime.
Well, that's some crazy stuff. And guys, you guys can check out Kirby's site is savedinamerica.org. I would highly recommend, if you guys have it in you, to donate to a cause like this, because I really can't think of too many causes that are, you know, more worthwhile and important than, you know, taking care of our children and, you know, our exploited children. So if you go to savedinamerica.org, there is a donation link there, and I will also put it in the description box of this video. Now, Kirby, is there a typical way that these children are generally taken?
Exactly what you're saying. Let me say this a minute too while we're talking about the website, guys. There's a volunteer button on that website, and if you're a special operations guy in your past life, if you're a retired police officer in your past life, we need you guys to volunteer, because we're getting to the point where we're growing, and I need qualified volunteers to come in and help support us in this effort, this volunteer effort throughout the country. So please go to that website, let us know, and let us know who you are and what your qualifications are. I will get a hold of you and vet you. Everybody in Saved in America is vetted to become a private eye. We're CCW carriers. So it's like we need to work across the United States and work together to stop this crime happening and stop this kind of predatorial stuff on our kids, which is the fiber of America, which I've said before. Now, a typical case, Mike, like you're asking, is there's no typical case. I mean, it happens in a lot of different ways, right? From parties. They're at parties. A lot of gangbangers will come and be at a party, get a girl high and say, hey, come on, let's take a ride, and they take a ride. One that we had was in Utah. Went to a party. They were having a great time at the party. A couple gangbangers said, hey, listen, come on, let's take your car and we'll go for a trip. You want to go to Mexico? And they were going, what
Jeez.
is it on the weekend? Sure, let's drive down there because they assume they're going to come back. Well, in this particular case, they didn't come back. And the people that had taken them got them into human trafficking. We were able to stop it before they crossed the border. We found them off of University Avenue in San Diego. We called the police on the location and at the address. The police went in, knocked on the door, recovered the girl, and we had the girl's mother there from Utah, brought her down to identify and recover her daughter. The mother took the daughter, but we had to take them to a hospital, get DNA on all the predators that had used her, so that the city attorney could start lawsuits against these people and recover assets, so that the young girls can get in and young boys can get into care. And these programs are not cheap. These programs are designed to bring the kids back, but it takes a long time. You know, some kids take up to 6 months in these programs to even start coming back to some kind of normalcy. But that is one case. Another case is they get recruited out of school. A lot of middle schools have recruiters, gang recruiters in them that are recruiting kids that are kind of lost. They're introverts, you know, they're flowing with the crowd. This is where our target is, that we have things that people are doing in schools to educate the kids about these particular recruiters. Stay with a friend. Let your friends know what you're doing, who you're going with. Don't go out there with strange guys or boys that you go to school with without having a friend with you. Understand that, because it's dangerous out there. So you have to be careful. And the best way to protect yourself is to go with a group of people. You have a group of people at school, make sure everybody knows where you're going. Other things that have happened is out of county homes where they have recruiters, and that girls have run away out of the homes that they're living in. One of the places that we take care of is CASA up in Oceanside here in Southern California. And what happens is the pimps will call the girls, the underage girls, with their cell phones, which they all have, and ask them to come out or jump the fence basically and come out of CASA, jump in their car. The pimps will go sell them for the weekend and then bring them back to the CASA on Sunday night, so the CASA can feed them, clothe them, do all that stuff all week long. And then they'll call them again the next weekend and try to do the same thing. Well, we kind of stopped that because we work in the streets outside CASA. So every time we see a pimp pull up, we notify law enforcement. Law enforcement will run a tag on that particular car. And if there's a warrant out for the guy or anything else, at least they will stop him, question him, and say, what are you doing here? And that most of the time, that sends the girl back into CASA for protection for the weekend. So we've done that a lot. And that's kind of where some of our numbers come from in the recovery of the 220 some girls, is we're counting that as a recovery, because sometimes we have to go on the road, follow that car, identify that car to police, and have police pull that car over. So it's not, so that's the reason why some of them are counted like that. Each situation is different, and it doesn't make any difference what status of life the girls come from, is because they come from rich neighborhoods, they come from poor neighborhoods. And, you know, what we do is we only go after and recover American kids. There's so much of it going out there with international stuff. We don't have that kind of bandwidth to go after all of them. So we work directly for the parents. The parents have to call Save in America for us to engage and go find their children, because we have to have that power of attorney, because the power of attorney protects us from not getting caught up into the situation where they have the Stockholm syndrome, where we are the bad guys and the pimp that's buying her all these things and everything else are the good guys. Not the case.
Yeah, so that's another thing that they're doing is basically giving them trinkets and like you
Oh,
mentioned, phones and things to make them, hey, I want to go back out with this guy next week. And no matter what happened to me, at least I got some good things. And, I'm still living in this home here. I mean, you
yeah.
talk about I can't stress enough, like the amount of, it literally makes me sick because these people have less than no morals, because I can't imagine exploiting somebody like this. And it just shows you that some of these, unfortunately, it's a lot of these gang members too. They literally have no morals and things that they do to even adults. They murder other people and torture people. And I mean, these people are just, the scum of the earth. And to be able to do something like that repeatedly just for money, it shows you that they literally have no morals and pretty much probably nothing to live for themselves. So it's really
That's
great to see that you guys are out here, doing what you can. And you're right, take care of America, before we can, build up this operation and go to other countries, because I would imagine, like you mentioned, in Africa and stuff, I'm sure it's even worse. And
oh
they're still selling adults over there. They still have like trade labor, trade slaves that are going back and forth. You see them on the boats. But,
yes.
but it's highly disturbing to see that this stuff goes out here. So once again, guys, there's a tip line here on the website, 760-348-8808. If you guys have any tips on children that they may be missing, or you see some questionable activity, is there anything that we can look out for, Kirby? I mean, I know, like you said, each situation is different and it's tough to, to nail down, but is there any typical thing that you can look out for, or are they kind of just meld in with the rest of the people?
Well, I think, I mean, we trained a lot of people that work in, major shopping centers and stuff, the guards that walk around. Those are important places to be, because a lot of these older guys and gang members have to take these girls out, once in a while, to kind of keep them sane. They can't keep them locked up all the time. But
Mm,
so that's kind of what you have to look for. I mean, if you have a guy that's buying a young girl a lot of expensive things in a mall, go find the mall cop and say, hey, listen, I suspect that there is child trafficking going on here, and I just need you to ask the question. If you see something, you got to say something. It's not
mm,
like getting into anybody's business. But, if you're protecting that child's, life, basically, and you just ask a simple question, if the guy gets uptight, something's wrong,
yeah.
right? If it's the gal's uncle, he's not going to get uptight, nor is she. But if she gets real sketchy and he gets uptight about it and she starts withdrawing, then you kind of got that sign. There's a hint there, right?
Mm,
And the thing I always say is ask the grandmas, because grandparents, you're not going to get too much by a grandpa or a
mm,
grandma, because they're pretty savvy. And this kind of crime needs an entire village to help solve it. It's not like you're going to solve it or we're going to solve it by ourselves. I need everybody out there. I need everybody aware of trafficking. And finally, since 2014, because before 2014, nobody talked about this. It was a crime that didn't exist, and it was under the rug, and now at least people are talking about it. Again, back to our president. Our president got a trafficking department started, so they're doing great work. They're reaching out to the communities and talking about it, and asking people to get involved. And if everybody's involved, and all these pimps and crooks know that people are looking out for them, you know what? They're not going to do what they think they can get away with, because they're going to get busted. And when they get busted, it's a whole thing. I mean, there are laws right now where we're talking about 30 years to life for child porn.
mm,
So that's a big thing, and how much money is involved in it. It's tremendous. $300,000 a year to a gang member is better than any drug in the world he could sell, any
mm,
drug. And these kids that they have are mobile. They just get them up, shoot them up, and take them to the place they're going to make money, and then pick them up and take them back, right?
mm.
So they have to keep them fed and they have to keep them clothed. And that's pretty much it, because it's a mobile commodity. That's what I always say. They get them up and they move them, and it's a commodity to those guys. All they're worried about is how much money am I going to make off this person today.
It's disgusting. And like you said, it's good to see that we're starting to get more of it out in the public, and a lot of it is to do, like you mentioned, President Trump. And I noticed a lot of these arrests that we see on like justice.gov. If I might get it wrong, but I think it was Project Guardian Angel. But
Yes,
a lot of these arrests, you see, oh, it's part of this Guardian Angel, and this has been going on for a few years, and I guess it is nationwide. And also, besides that, it's a lot to do with Jeffrey Epstein, that whole thing. So people started to see what he was doing. And from what I gather, he was even using, he may have been, I'll leave it at that. He may have been using helicopters or airplanes that were actually the same tail numbers as military, so he could fly into certain areas in certain countries and not have to go through customs, pick up stuff and leave. But it's good to see that we're actually getting people out there.
wow.
That's the idea. You need to get eyes on, and we need to be, I feel like, I grew up in the early 80s. So like, I remember neighborhood crime watch, right? Now you just see like the
Yep.
folded signs in the neighborhoods and nobody's
Yep.
doing anything, right? I used to go walk into my neighbor's, house, just walk in the front door. Hey, how's it going, Marilyn? And
Right.
nowadays it's like, I don't even know who my neighbor is. I barely talk to them, so
Right.
it's a community thing. And I think we need to all start looking out for each other.
Well, I totally agree, Mike. You really hit on something that really is dynamite and needs to be talked about in our society. We need to get out. You need to know your neighbors. You need to learn what your neighbors do. I mean, there's a lot of people that's very closed circuit about that. But in the neighborhood, everybody needs to have everybody else's phone number. They
Yes.
need to be able to call if there's an emergency. If there's a fire here in California, we all have everybody's phone number, because if there's a fire, everybody's got to call everybody because we're evacuating. And in other parts of the country, the same way. So just that alone brings a community together, and everybody kind of knows what's going on in that community. We've totally lost that in America. We've totally lost it. When you grew up as a kid in the 80s, we had that. The 90s went, the 2000s went, and here we are at 2020, and we haven't gotten any better about that. And that's the reason why these guys exist, because they know they can get through the cracks, the seams of neighborhoods,
Hmm.
and no attention, because nobody wants to get involved. We have to get involved. If you see something, you've got to say something.
Yeah, that's a big, I follow an online researcher, and that's one of his biggest lines is see something, say something. And that's the
Absolutely.
point. We need to get back to that mindset of taking care of your own, and it starts at your house and in your own neighborhood as well.
It's
Um,
very
so
true, man. Very,
yes.
very true.
So I know you guys have rescued, hundreds of kids, and my hat is absolutely off to you, not only for the service to our country, you being a longtime Navy SEAL, and doing this after you've retired from that is something that's very commendable, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And there's many of us that are doing it, which is also good. And there's people now that we're getting across the country. I have retired SEALs in Las Vegas that are going to help us. I have people in Houston, Texas that are retired SEALs that are going to help us. I have people, retired SEALs, retired law enforcement in all those places, and retired law enforcement in Tampa, Florida that we're working with right now. We are getting volunteers by going to the website. We have a number of law offices that have volunteered to help with the law situation and going after these predators to get reimbursements and sue them and take their belongings to give them to these kids that's been abused, so these kids can be taken care of. And that's one of the things that we helped do, was get a law the through the state of California. Not so much, but at least it went to the House of Representatives and they passed the law. And that kind of brought the emphasis on wherever the president is at, and putting together a trafficking task force and department to make sure that this heinous crime is squashed in America. So our kids are safe. Remember when we used to go outside and play in the streets and all that?
Oh yeah. I don't let my
Now,
kid out of my sight now. He's 9 and I still don't let him out of my sight.
that's exactly, I mean, what, you had to come home when the street lights came on.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you can't do that anymore.
No.
It's that has been taken away from us, and it's been taken away from us because of these criminals. And these criminals need to go to jail. They need to enact this law that says 30 years to life for anything to do with child pornography.
I
End of
agree.
the story. Then you get those predators and those psychos off of the street, and they never become a part of society again, Mike. That's what we have to do.
I agree 100%. And I think you guys are definitely headed in the right direction. That, I mean, I believe, murder, it's right up there with murder. I mean,
Oh,
it's just, I mean, it might as well be the same thing. And they need to know that if you get caught, you're going to go down. And,
that's
I would even press, it should be a little bit worse, maybe even a lethal injection. If you
well,
have hard, solid proof, 100% proof that they did that, I think they should be taken off this earth. But that's my personal opinion.
well, you're still, with that, Mike, you're stealing a life. Every one of these kids that gets sucked into this trafficking thing they are stealing that kid's life. They have stolen the innocence from that child. And that child is going to suffer from that experience for the rest of their lives. So they have stolen a life. So you're absolutely right. It's just like murder, and it should be, when they come to trial, they should have a sentencing just like murder.
Yep. And that way, if you get caught, you're going down and maybe forever. And I see here it says 223 recoveries since December 2014, 5 per month on average. And I'm sure that's not an easy situation. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but did you want to run through really quickly? I know you were talking before about, what happens from the tip line? Like what would people expect to encounter if they were going to get involved?
Yeah, let me give you a step-by-step with that, Mike. So if once the parents call us in on the tip line and they have a child that has disappeared for some reason or another, we will talk with those parents, more than likely go interview them or interview them on the phone. We have to have a power of attorney, like I said, from them to go do it. Then we know kind of where the child was lost and where the child was last seen, because we do a lot of investigative work. As I've said before, we're all private investigators. We will do that. We'll look at security cams from stores and everything else. Once we have a pretty good idea of where that child is at, then we contact law enforcement. Let law enforcement know that we are going to be working in this area, so that the desk sergeant is aware of our presence there, and so is other law enforcement. And once we have found the location and identified the child, then we will call law enforcement in to knock on the door and recover that child. Law enforcement will give us that child because we have the power of attorney. We will take that child to medical facility, get a rape kit done on them, collect as much DNA as possible on them, so that the city prosecutor or state prosecutor will have evidence to go after that particular individuals, multiple ones, and put them in jail for, the minor that they just, had illegal sex with, right? And so then that is the situation. Now these guys are going to go to jail. They're going to be pushed through the courts. They're going to be sued by the courts. They're going to lose assets as much as the jury will allow them to lose, or more. There's insurance companies that are going to get sucked into this, because the houses that this particular, event was going on in, now the owner of that house becomes liable because he's not paying attention to what's going on in his property.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we've been recovering funds for these kids so far, and all those funds that we recover go to the child. The lawyers volunteer their time to do it. There are many law firms now that are popping up, and you will see them on the TV about trafficking if your child's caught in trafficking, let us know. We will go recover from that person. So now, which is kind of, um, what do I want to say, oxymoron, because now I have a lawyer that's looking and a predator to go get as much money out of that person as they possibly can get. And I also have the predator that is a predator after our children, and he's going to lose everything he has. So it's a good situation, and I'm glad the law got passed. And I'm glad that we're out there doing what we're doing, and America is finally realizing what a heinous crime this is. And they're finally talking about it. And the philanthropic people that support us are finally, thankful that they are helping us and contributing to our cause. So please go to our website, savedinamerica.org, and either volunteer or help us by sponsoring us with a donation. And thank you again for taking your time to listen to our podcast.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Kirby. And the really good thing is a lot of my audience are retired military. So hopefully if they feel like they can contribute, you guys know there is a tab here, guys, like we mentioned earlier. You can come over here and click on the contact volunteer. If you guys have any information on a tip line, something that doesn't look right, something that's questionable, or you have a missing child, 760-348-8808. And also on savedinamerica.org, there is also a donate button, and I will put a donate link in the description of this video. And, like I said, Kirby, you and your team are doing absolutely God's work, and I know we all wish that this was all, behind us and you could enjoy your retirement that you worked in the SEALs for so many decades to enjoy. And I know you'd rather be playing golf, but, this is something that's obviously near and dear to your heart. And I couldn't thank you enough for your service to our country and for doing this as well, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, I'm a grandpa, and I want a safe place for my grandkids to grow up in. And just like every veteran out there and every veteran that is a grandpa, our grandma, they want a safe place for the kids to grow up. And we want to get rid of these predators that look at our kids as commodities rather than the beautiful children they are.
Absolutely. So once again, guys, you guys can head over to savedinamerica.org. I will leave links in the description box. If you guys have it in you to donate, I would highly recommend that. And big thanks again, Kirby. And to my audience, appreciate everybody for tuning in as usual. And until the next one, thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Peace.